reins and we're gonna rock and roll.
All right. So, welcome to Making Art on the iPad, a Procreate workshop. Today I'll be covering all the Procreate basics and then doing a follow-along drawing where we'll learn about the most essential Procreate tools and features as we create an illustration together. And I'll even do a demo of animation in Procreate at the end. This class is perfect for people that have no Procreate experience, but even experienced Procreate users can pick up some really useful tips and tricks. Plus, you can ask questions along the way. So have your iPad and with Procreate installed and an Apple Pencil ready and be ready to follow along. I will be doing this workshop using the built-in Procreate brushes so we can all follow along together with the same brushes. So I am Lisa Bardot. I am an illustration artist, a teacher, and all-around creative person. I'm a mom to 2 kids. There they are right there. And I have one on the way that's due in a couple months. So that's pretty exciting. And I really got into digital art not long after my first was born, my son. I've been doing various creative things pretty much my entire life, but never really got into drawing until I met the Procreate app. At the time, I was feeling really unhappy in my current business as a wedding photographer, and I was really feeling a pull to have more art making in my life. Oops, hold on, there we go. Sorry about that. Pardon me. So to develop those skills, I decided in 2016 that I would commit to drawing something every day for a year. And that literally changed my life and led me to where I'm at today. During that year, I became pregnant with my daughter. It was a very emotional pregnancy filled with struggle, but my drawing provided me with an outlet of expression I never knew was missing from my life. And this is one of the drawings I did during that time. And I'm sure anybody who's been pregnant before knows that it's a very happy and exciting time, but this happens too, and it's not really talked about as much. So that was really, really impactful on my life and helped me see how important it was to have that kind of expression to be able to express what I was feeling. So all that drawing prompted me to start making my own brushes for Procreate, which I eventually started selling and became my current business, which is Bardot Brush. So I make a wide variety of brushes in different mediums, and the brushes also prompted me to start teaching people how to use them, so I started making tutorials as well. And then I wanted to share with others what an impact daily art making can have on your life, so I started the Making Art Everyday project, or challenge as sometimes we call it. So what this is I send out weekly emails with motivation, the occasional tutorial, and daily drawing prompts, all with the goal to help you overcome whatever fears are stopping you from establishing a daily art making practice. I ran it for all of 2019, and the community of participants has grown a ton. I know some of you that are tuning in are definitely participants in this, especially those of you guys in the Making Art Everyday Facebook group. So I'm so glad that I'm just so proud of the community that has grown and how supportive you guys all are of each other with bringing art into your daily lives. So now we're into Making Art Everyday 2020. We have new exciting drawing challenges, and it's been really amazing to see all the participants push themselves out of their comfort zones and incorporate more creativity into their lives. So if you want to learn better or learn to draw better, I highly recommend joining in. It really helps you get a lot of practice and develop those skills. So what is Procreate? So you guys are here to learn about Procreate today, and it's an app for iPad and iPhone. I highly recommend the iPad version, but you can also, there is a version for iPhone where you draw with your fingers. So it's a drawing, painting, and animation app that lets you make art anytime, anywhere, and you have the whole world of art tools and mediums with you all the time. So it's really great. You don't have to get out a million paints and it can get messy. So this is a lot more convenient, and it's really awesome, which you guys will see. So you can create illustrations, animation, lettering pieces. You can keep an art journal as a means of self-expression and so much more. So like I said at the beginning, it doesn't matter your experience level with Procreate, whether you've never used it before or if you've been using it a while. I think you're going to really learn some cool stuff today. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an overview of the basics where you guys can follow along. And then we'll jump into a follow along illustration where we'll learn about the most important Procreate stuff as we go. And then at the end, I'm going to also be teaching you a bit about animation in Procreate, which is pretty cool to see and super, super fun. So I hope you have your iPad and your Apple Pencil ready. This is my Apple Pencil, and it's really the best tool to draw on the iPad. There are other styluses, I don't know, that you can get, but nothing compares to the Apple Pencil. It is just the best. So mine looks a little special because I have this cool like #2 pencil decal, which I'm actually going to be doing a giveaway at the end of this video if you want to like have a couple of these to give away. So let me see here. So if you want to be a part of that giveaway, I'm going to be giving away a couple of these like this. It's the decals. These are from dbrand is the company, dbrand.com. I'm also going to be giving away a couple of my brush sets and 2 of my master bundles, which contain all of my brush sets. So if you text Procreate to 55444, that's how you can get entered into that giveaway. And I'll also be emailing you guys after some resources and things that we've talked about today, so you can look into that after this class. So go ahead and do that right now. And I'm also going to be taking a few questions throughout the whole class, but we're going to do a Q&A at the end as well. So if you want, go ahead and get out your iPad and open up the Procreate app. And just so you know, I'm going to be using Procreate version 5, but if you have an earlier version of Procreate 4 or earlier, some of the things might look a little different, but it's mostly the same. And if you have, some of the brushes are only available, that I'll use today are only available in Procreate 5, but I'll give you some alternatives to use if you're not in Procreate 5. So, all right. Hope we're all ready to go. How's comments? Everybody doing good? Cool. All righty. So
Everyone looks like they're doing really good, you guys. We're really excited to get started here.
Yay. Okay, so I'm going to go into Procreate now. And before we get started, I wanted to show you how you can check to see what version of Procreate you have, just so you are aware.
Well, real quick, a lot of people were asking, yes, it should work internationally for texting, and I've got a couple people saying that it is working, although I've got a couple people saying it's not working, so is that international? What I'll do is we'll put up another phone number. It will be an American number that you'll have to text. But I can get that up in just a little bit. So
okay,
all of our international folks, while Lisa is going along, I'll put it across all the platforms. I'll enter in so that way you guys have that international ability to text us. So give us a couple minutes as we keep going and let Lisa get started.
Cool. So yeah, we'll get that worked out. We'll mention the giveaway again before we do the official giveaway, so you guys can get entered for that. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys here was how to check what version of Procreate you have, just so you're aware as I'm going through. So if you're in gallery view, which is what this is, just tap the Procreate word up at the top, and then it'll say version here. I have version 5.0.2, so it's really small, but you can see it. So again, I'm working in 5, but I'll let you know alternate brushes to use if you're using Procreate 4. All right. Okay, cool. So let's jump in. So this is, like I said, the gallery view. You can see all the artwork that you've created. You can rename stuff, you can export, you can organize things into stacks, like combine things together, and a whole lot more. I'm not going to go too much into the gallery view organization. So let's just jump right in by opening a new canvas. So to start a new canvas, you go and tap on this little plus icon in the upper right. And then we're just going to choose the screen size canvas. There are all these templates and things like that, which we'll talk about in a minute. We're just going to use the screen size template, and that creates a canvas that's the same resolution as your iPad screen. So this is the interface, the Procreate interface. If you've got your canvas area in the middle, that's where you draw. You've got some different menus here on the right, menus here on the left, and then some tools over here on the right. And we're gonna start with the tools. So over here in the very upper right is the color picker. And this is how you choose your colors. You can pick colors in a few different ways. The one I like best is the disc. So these are the different ways you can choose colors. But I like the disc the best. The outer ring lets you choose your hue, so like the actual color. And then the inner disc lets you choose the saturation, lightness, or darkness of that color. Let's go ahead and choose black for now. So we'll just slide it down all the way to this, I don't know, is that 7 o'clock or so? We'll choose black there and then tap out of that. Pardon me. Okay, so let's hop over to the brushes now. Procreate comes with a number of built-in brushes, and the different brushes help you create different effects in art mediums. So like pencils, markers, paints, and so much more. And even stuff you can only do digitally. So you can create your own brushes using the Brush Studio, which we're not gonna talk about today, but I'll show you what it looks like. If you tap on a brush, you'll come to all these different settings. And manipulating all these many settings is how you create brushes. And that's what I do. That's how I create my brushes that I sell at bardotbrush.com. So in my, let me cancel out of that. So here I have all the brush sets I've ever created organized into sets. But like I said, for this workshop, we're gonna be using the built-in Procreate brushes, which I've got down here. You'll know that they're built-in ones because they have special little icons, like a pencil and a calligraphy nib, and they're not just a little swoosh mark. So we're gonna choose the inking set, which is right here. It's the one with the little calligraphy nib. And we're gonna choose the brush Mercury. If you don't see the brush that I'm talking about, it could be because, like I said, you have Procreate 4. In that case, I'll give you alternate brushes to use, and you can use the dry ink brush, which is in that same set. So that's down here, dry ink. But if you have 5, let's choose Mercury. Everybody following along? We got any comments? I wanna make sure I'm not going too fast.
Let's just see.
I think we're doing okay.
Just real quick, you guys, everyone, I've already got it up on YouTube. I'll get it up everywhere else, but we do have an international number for you guys to be able to text. And again, it's just text Procreate to that number, and we're giving away all kinds of fun stuff. It's a nice fun.
So yeah, Jeff's talking about how we're doing a giveaway. He's gonna put that number into the comments so you guys can see that, scroll through, and I'll bring it up on my screen a little bit later.
And we did have one question just on canvas size, but I don't think we're there.
We haven't gotten into canvas size yet, but we will a little later.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Great, so let's see. Okay, so if you're using an Apple Pencil, most brushes are designed to react to pressure sensitivity. So right now, go ahead and try making very light marks and then very heavy marks with the brush. And you can see the difference that creates. And many brushes are also responsive to tilt. So if you use the pencil at an angle, it produces a different effect. So if I hold it straight up and down, it'll look like this. And then if I hold it kind of like if you remember in school or if you ever took art classes, shading like that, they're programmed to do different things depending on the brush. Not all of them have this behavior, but see how that's a little bit lighter, a little bit more shady, if that's the technical term. So you can kind of experiment and see how that goes. There are sliders over here on the left. The top one will change your brush size. So up there will be really big, and then down, if you move it down, it'll be smaller. And then this one at the bottom does the opacity of the brush. So how see-through your brush strokes will be. So this brush doesn't, and again, it's all based on the programming of the brush. Some brushes don't do opacity, and this one doesn't look like it does that much. Let me turn down. Yeah, it does a little bit. They're all programmed differently, so some might react differently to those sliders. But let's turn that all the way back up. So the next tool down the line here is smudge. And You can choose any of your brushes to use as a smudge tool. But basically what that does is it kind of like smears things around, so to speak. And I don't use this tool a ton because my art style is pretty like graphic and like clean edges and things like that. But it can help you produce like more of a painterly style and like help with shading and things like that. So that's what smudge does. And another little tip for smudge is the opacity slider affects the intensity of how much it smudges. So it'll smudge more if it's turned all the way up.
And while we're going along, quite a few people were asking, you're using the Mercury brush, is that correct?
Yep.
And then what about if you're on Procreate 4? Do you remember what the alternative
If you're on
was?
Procreate 4, use the dry ink brush from the inking set.
All right, I hope that helps everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people on YouTube who are helping answer questions. You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for jumping in and answering other people's questions if you know the answer. That is really, really helpful. Okay, so that's smudge. And then, of course, there is the eraser tool, which is right next to that, which does exactly what you'd expect. What is cool is that you can choose any brush to use as your eraser, so that you can match the erase strokes to the brush head strokes. And I'll show you a little trick. So I have Mercury selected, as I mentioned. And if I tap and hold the eraser icon, it's going to automatically select the brush, which I had Mercury, as the eraser. So it's a really quick way to like set your eraser to what you're using for your brush. And then you can, your eraser marks will match. So you see like, it's not just like I'm erasing it and it's like a clean line, it matches the edge of those strokes. So I use the eraser actually quite a lot. If you've been following in my live videos this week, you'll see how much I use the eraser to draw, actually, to like kind of clean up shapes and draw. Okay, so before we move on, I'm going to teach you some helpful gestures, which you might have seen me using a little bit already. But Procreate uses a bunch of different multi-touch gestures to help you speed up your work. And the ones I use the most are undo and redo, and you'll probably use these the most too. So to undo, you tap with 2 fingers. So 2 finger, tap, 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 it will undo like that. And then if you tap and hold, it'll undo a bunch. Like it'll just go back as long as you hold it down. And then to redo, you tap with 3 fingers, tap, 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 and again, tap and hold, and you can redo a whole bunch. To clear an entire layer, you can put 3 fingers on the canvas and then do like a scrubbing motion. So like that. And then let me go undo that. Another super useful gesture is copy and paste. So if you swipe down with 3 fingers, you can pull up the copy paste menu. So you have cut, copy, cut and paste, copy and paste. Are some of the different options that you can do with that. So that's a really helpful one, and sometimes people don't always know that it's there. So let me get rid of that. So another super useful gesture is the eyedropper. So if you take 1 finger and tap and hold and don't lift your finger up, you'll get this little like magnifier, and you can go over and select another color that's already on your screen. So it's great for sampling. If you're like, oh, I need to use that color again that I've already used, you can use the eyedropper. You can also pinch and spread to zoom and rotate like that. And then if you're zoomed in, you can do a quick pinch, which the motion is like whoop, whoop, which I'll show you. And that'll go back to like putting the whole canvas on your screen. So one more time. So it's kind of like snap, doop, like that. Like you're picking up a little hanky and you're a fancy lady. I don't know. That's probably not a good metaphor, but yeah. So the first thing I always suggest to any new Procreate user is to get to know the brushes by creating a brush stroke study. This will get you familiar with the capabilities and different effects that the brushes can produce. So right now I'm gonna just use my 3 fingers and scrub that out, just kind of like a scrubbing motion to clear the layer. And I'm gonna have you guys spend a couple minutes playing with the different brushes, and I'll do it on the screen with you. So clear out that layer, and then we're gonna go ahead and like tap through some of the different brushes. I'm gonna go back to black for my color and just kind of see what they do. Experiment with pressure. I'm using Pandani. I'm probably gonna butcher all these names. I'm, seeing what different tilt does. Speed even can create different effects. But just to see what marks can you create with these brushes, because when you're drawing something, you're like, oh, I need something that looks kind of like, I don't know, linen, and I can make this hash mark thing. I'm like, oh, this brush can do that. So so it's good to see what each brush can do. This one is thylacine. And I think this one creates a really cool, like that one's cool for hatching, or I don't know, if I do it really heavy, and just like play and like totally just see what each kind of one does. I'm still in the inking set, and you guys can just be following along and playing and going to different brushes. Going into the drawing set, I'll try Freycinet, and that one's got a cool texture to it. If I draw really lightly, the texture is a little lighter, as you might expect, darker with more heavy pressure. What else? Sticks. Let's see. Oh, that one's cool. So just keep playing, try different stuff. If I press really hard, oh, that's kind of cool. I really like that textured edge. Let's go into another one, calligraphy. This one's called Blotchy, which has kind of like a watercolor looking texture, like a wash. And then, as you can see, if I overlap strokes, they kind of build up in intensity, so that brush is programmed to behave that way. What else? Water pen, let's see. Oh, so that one's got kind of some nice, soft, watery edges. That's interesting. Oh, what else? Let's go into another set. Turpentine. And so this brush is programmed to like kind of have you can see it a little bit, it has a smearing effect. So you can get probably a really painterly look with that one. So if you're into like kind of oil paints, which they have an oil paint brush, which probably has a similar behavior. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see, a couple more. Aurora. I know this brush, if I was using a different color, which we're just sticking to black right now, some brushes are programmed to have like different colors in them. Maybe I'll show you that really quick. See, I chose like this pinky red, and it's got like peach and orange and all kinds of stuff. So it's also fun to experiment and see what color can do, but I'm gonna stick to black for now. And maybe a couple more. There's these textures. This one's cool. So you can add like a cool graphic texture to a shape or something like that. Storm Bay, that one I've used before, and it looks, it just makes me think of Game of Thrones and like the Night's Watch, because it's like ice and I don't know. Yeah, it looks like an iceberg. I don't know. It's cool. So yeah, so this is a handy exercise to do anytime, especially when you sit down and you're just like, I don't know what to draw. Like, I just don't, I'm not feeling anything. Just play with the brushes and see what marks you can do, because this is very valuable to you as an artist to determine like what you can use the brushes for and what they can do and what their capabilities are, how far you can push them. Like I make brushes and I design them to behave a certain way, and then people use them a totally different way, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. Like, you found another way to use it. Like, that's what art supplies are all about, is like finding new ways to use them. So yeah, I recommend just trying that out anytime when you're not sure what to do.
Someone was asking a cool little question. When you keep the two settings on the left the same and you're trying different brushes, the line seems to not be consistent. How do you remember which line appears thicker or thinner? So what's happened, I think you're talking about the slider here. When I'm going to like different brushes, it's moving around. So when you select a brush, it remembers whatever settings you had here last time you used it. And so that's why it's moving around. So if I had used this membrane brush, a couple days ago, and I haven't used it since then, the last time I used it, I had the opacity turned halfway down and the size all the way up.
And then last time I used Stormbay, these were my settings. So that's how that works. So just make sure to check before you start drawing, and it's easy enough to undo and like adjust as you go. So I hope that answers your question. All right. Okay, guys. So I hope you guys are all ready to start working on an actual illustration. We're going to be drawing one of my favorite subjects, which is some cacti. And I'm really excited for you guys to follow along and draw this, so it'll be pretty cool. We're done with this study now. To go back to the gallery view and create a new canvas, we're going to tap gallery up here in the top left. And so we're back here. And we're going to create a canvas template now. So we're going to click or tap. I'm so used to saying click from growing up with the mouse. Tap the plus sign. And we're going to create a new canvas template. So I know I mentioned this a little bit ago, but there are some default like built-in canvas templates, and they're just like different sizes. I have some that I use frequently that I've created. Probably my favorite size is this 5500 by 4000. It's really high res, and it's also the same size, like same ratio as my screen, so it takes up the whole screen. And it also works well for Instagram, like that ratio. So that's what I usually use. But for today, we're gonna create a new one. So we're gonna tap this little plus rectangle thing next to new canvas. And this will pull up where we can create a custom canvas. So the canvas we're gonna create is 3000 by 3000 pixels. So we're just gonna type that in. We have pixels selected down here. So just type in 3000 by 3000. I usually work in pixels when I'm choosing my canvas size, but you can also set it up in inches, centimeters, millimeters. If you're working, towards printing something, inches might be the way to go. And I did want to mention something about DPI because people get confused about this all the time. If I'm working already in pixels, this doesn't matter at all. If you are working in inches, it does. So to print, the recommended DPI is no more than 300 DPI per inch. So let me see. If I was doing 8.5 by 11 at 300 DPI, that means that when I print this at 8.5 by 11, it's going to be a good resolution for it will not look pixelated. If you go down in DPI, it's going to look pixelated when you print it at that size. It's a little confusing, but I usually just stick to pixels. And I know that a 5,000 on one side pixel canvas can print a wall art piece if I ever wanted it to. So that's why I usually go big, just so I have that option just in case it comes out really good and I want to print it big. Because you can always shrink it down, but you can never make it bigger. So. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is about layer count. So I'm going back to my 3000 by 3000 pixel. So down here it says the maximum layers that I can use, which is 55, which is plenty. Usually I work with a bigger canvas and I only get maybe 17 to 20 layers. So we'll talk about layers in a little bit, so it might not make sense right now, but the layer count is determined by how big your canvas is and also how fast and powerful your iPad hardware is. So if you have a smaller canvas size, you'll get more layers. If you have a faster iPad, you'll get more layers. So those are the two things that affect maximum layer count. And then you can also title your canvas template. So I'm just going to call this one 3000 square. That lets me know it's 3000 pixels and it's a square. So, and then we can hit create. Cool. How are we doing? Any questions so far, Jeff? My husband Jeff is here too. I don't know, you guys have probably heard him in the background, but I didn't introduce him. He's been my co-host for all these live streams, and he's looking at all your comments and questions and then handing them over to me because I can't see the screens or I can't see any of the comments. So
and there's a lot of good things coming in. Everyone's talking about, oh my gosh, how many layers do I have available, and how that's a little different for everybody, right?
Yeah,
so you have 16, 18.
It's really just
11.
going to depend. It's really just going to depend on those two things. Your iPad hardware. So if you have an iPad mini and it's kind of older, you aren't going to get as many layers as you would on like a brand new iPad Pro. And then also the canvas resolution. So any other questions before we move on?
So I was just asking, is 3,000 by 3,000, is that good enough for Instagram posts?
Yeah. Instagram maxes out at 2048. 2048, I'll cross this way, and then, longer when you have like a vertical piece. But so yeah, it's plenty. I
was going to say, the biggest thing is do you want to print it? That's going to really be, when you think about Instagram, well, what if I want to print this?
Yeah, 2048, you could print that probably still in 8x10.
Yeah.
Just fine. Yeah. The resolution for print also is dependent on the viewing distance. So like if it's like a billboard and you got really close to a billboard, you would see giant pixels. But I digress. Okay, so I think we're gonna go ahead and keep going.
Yeah,
I hope you guys are following along and having fun so far. We're gonna get into some good stuff now. Okay, so we're gonna go to the color picker and we're gonna choose a green color. And I am gonna do like a yellowy green, kind of right there. That's the color I'm gonna choose. So if you guys can see that. And I did want to show you one cool trick about the color picker is if you want to recall the color you were previously using, you can tap and hold that little circle. So I had black and it went back to black. And if I tap it, it'll go back to green. So it'll go back and forth between the previous color and the current color. And then there's also color history here, which if you don't see this, it could be because you have a smaller iPad screen or you're on Procreate 4. This is a Procreate 5 feature, and only for like the bigger iPad screen. Some of the small iPads, it just doesn't have enough screen real estate for that, or that's what the Procreate people say. So yeah. Okay, so, and then I also wanted to mention this section down here is for Procreate color palettes. So for colors you use frequently, you can just tap into those and save them, and you can move them around, delete. And there's also this palette section. So I actually have a whole library of Procreate color palettes that you can download and import. They're all in my Procreate right now. But on my website, maybe Jeff can throw a link up there to the Procreate library. Do you know how to get it?
Which library?
Procreate Color Palette Library.
The Color Palette Library, absolutely.
Yeah, actually get the blog post and put that in because it's linked at the bottom. So I have a really great tutorial about how to use palettes once you get them, because you're like, oh, how do I use these colors and where should I put them in my piece? But color palettes can be very handy, and they can also kind of inspire you to do things a certain way when you're making art, I guess. So that's kind of a little bit more about the color picker. So now we're going to choose a different brush. We're going to go into the inking set, and we're going to choose a brush called Syrup. This is a Procreate 5 brush. So if you don't have Procreate 5, you can choose the Studio Pen brush. So Syrup if you have Procreate 5, Studio Pen if you have an earlier version of Procreate. And I chose this Syrup brush because it's got some streamline and smoothing settings on it, so it's very forgiving. A brush, so like I'm gonna show you the shape we're gonna draw right now, which I told you we're drawing a cactus. So oops, I'm on the eraser. So we're gonna just draw like a column that's rounded on top and flat on the bottom.
And real quick again, because there's a couple people asking, we are using Syrup as the brush.
Yep. Right now. It's called Syrup. It's in the inking set. And so it has these smoothing settings and streamline settings. So if you haven't mastered that like steady hand drawing skill, it kind of smooths out your lines a little bit instead of like it looking more choppy and wavy. So yeah, we're gonna draw this shape, which is like a column rounded on the top, flat on the bottom. And I did want to mention one thing, just make sure no parts of what we're drawing right now go off the edge of the canvas. So that'll be important as we develop this drawing. Okay, so I've drawn the outline of this shape, and now I'm gonna use Color Drop to fill the shape. So all I do is grab this little circle, drag it, and drop it in. And you do have to make sure that your shape is closed, or this will not work. It will do that and spill out everywhere. And then another thing that people run into and they're like, why is this happening? Is with something called color drop threshold. So I'm gonna choose, you guys don't have to do this, you don't need to follow along. I'm just gonna show you, see if I can show you. If I use a more textured brush, let me see if I can make, okay. So let me do that again. So if I drop it in, I get this like crazy, ugly white line around there. And if that happens to you, most of the time you're like, oh, what's going on? Or sometimes it'll just spill out everywhere and you're like, ah. So to account for that, you can adjust the color drop threshold. So basically you drag it in, and then I'm not lifting my pencil up. And you'll see across the top, there's this little blue bar, there it goes. And the more you go to the right, the more it'll seep into all the cracks, so to speak. Let me do it one more time. Until it's like, if you go too far, I keep running out of room before I do it. So let me try that one more time. If you go too far, it'll go everywhere. Like it'll go all out, all the edges. So you just got to kind of find the right threshold for whatever brush shape you're doing. And some brushes are so textured that you can't get it perfectly. And in that case, you can just like color it in like that. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that because a lot of people run into that problem. Okay, where are we? Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to make the bottom of my shape flat. Like it's got these kind of like rounded edges because the brush I use is round. I'm going to go back to the syrup brush. That's what I was using. So I'm going to use the eraser to do that. It's really hard to get like a perfectly square corner when you're drawing because most brushes in Procreate are round. So I use the eraser to do this. So remember our little tip, if you tap and hold the eraser tool, it's gonna select the same brush. So yep, now we've got syrup or Studio Pen if you're using Procreate 4. And I'm just gonna, whoop, erase. And now I have perfectly angled, nice squarish corners that are pointy and not round. So go ahead and do that. Okay, and then we're also gonna do some arms on the canvas. So we'll go back to the brush, and I'm just gonna kind of, some rounded shapes, like little, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a metaphor. Hot dog comes to mind, but I know that's not right. I kind of messed it up. I could use color drop too, actually, which I'll do. And then another one on this side, maybe this one's a little lower. And totally fine if it looks like a wonky cactus. Like I love wonkiness in drawing because it shows that you did it by hand and it's not like a perfect computer drawing. So yeah, now we have a cactus. Awesome. So now, how Jeff, are we okay? Question wise or?
Let's just check. My shape won't fill. Just drag and drop the color circle. Was a question.
Yeah, make sure your shape is closed. And I just talked about the color drop threshold where you, if it's spilling out, you got to hold it and then adjust it back or forth. So, okay, so I'm going to keep going. We're going to add some texture to this canvas, or to this cactus, I should say. So let's go ahead and go to brushes, and we're going to go to the painting set. And we're gonna go all the way down to the bottom and choose the one called Old Brush. And everybody should have this one. It's from all versions of Procreate, I believe. So choose Old Brush is the brush that we're using. So I'm also gonna choose a little bit darker green. So and if you notice in the color picker, like on the left side is the color I had chose that I previously had, and then the right is the new color, so you can compare and see like, oh, are these two colors gonna have enough contrast? I want it to be like probably right about there, just like a little bit different, a little bit darker. So now let me get out of that, and so I want to add some texture to this. And if you notice, if I start drawing, and even if I want to get like, I'm trying to get it right to the edge but not going over, like that's really hard to do, and I've got going over the edge, and I don't really want that to happen. So I'm going to use something called Alpha Lock to stop that from happening. So let me undo that. And to turn on Alpha Lock, you take 2 fingers and you swipe to the right, like that. And if you've done it right, you'll see like a checkerboard pattern behind the artwork in that layer. And we're in the layers panel. I didn't say that. It's the one with the 2 squares. You can also turn it on by tapping the layer, so the blue one, and then alpha lock, check or uncheck it. So we want to make sure it's checked, and we have that checkerboard pattern. And now when I paint in my texture, even though I'm drawing like way over here, it's only showing up within the confines of the shape I already drew. So it's basically putting like a, you can't draw here because there's nothing there. Like it only draws where you already drew, if that makes sense.
Now, what was that texture brush again?
This is called Old Brush from the painting set.
Say that one more time.
Old Brush.
Old Brush.
From the painting set. Yeah. So just go ahead and add like a few strokes. You don't need much. And then this one will kind of follow the contour of the arm of the cactus. And the same there. Maybe I'll come back and there. So nothing too crazy, just like a little bit of texture, just like that. Okay, and then we're going to add the ribs of the cactus, which are what technically those like lines that you see on a cactus are called. I did look up cactus anatomy before I created this class. This is the trunk, arms, and now we're gonna add the ribs. So let's go ahead and choose an even darker green. I'm even going a little cooler, like a little more towards blue, like that. And then we're gonna go back to the inking set, and then we're gonna choose the syrup brush. That's the one we were using before to draw the shape. So inking, we're going to syrup. And then we still have alpha lock turned on, so I can start up here and just draw all the way down. And then I'll kind of curve this one a little bit and one more. And then add 3 lines on this one. And I'm not using a terribly heavy pressure. If I used heavy pressure, it'd get really thick. So I'm using light pressure to draw like a thinner line. So I'm gonna curve that last one up the top a little bit more. And again, like, doesn't have to be like super consistently like spaced. It could be a little wonky, and that's totally fine. And do this side too. And there we go. I'm gonna move that one a little bit down. And I can, if I want to, I can even grab the eraser and, no, I can't do that. Forget that. That was ad lib. Forget I did that. Okay, so yeah, so now we have our first cactus all done. Pretty easy, I hope. So we're gonna draw another cactus now. And we're gonna create another layer to do that cactus on. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about layers right now. So the layers menu, which we popped into a second ago, is these 2 little squares. So if you tap on that, this is a layers menu. And then to create a new layer, we tap this plus sign, and it will create a new layer above whatever you had selected previously. And layers are one of the really amazing things about digital art. You basically can separate out parts of your drawing and work on them independently without affecting other layers or the other parts of your drawing. So this might make a little more sense as we continue on, but you can imagine like if I had cut this cactus out of paper, and then for the next layer I took another piece of paper and cut that out, and so like I can place it over the top and I can move it around independently, and I can change just that one piece of paper. I'm trying to give like a physical example, but yeah, layers are awesome. There's so much that you can do with them. So now we're gonna do another cactus. So I'm probably just gonna stick with the same darker green color. Maybe I'll go a little lighter.
And as you're doing, someone's just asking, could you show alpha lock one more time? Is that possible, Lisa?
Yeah. Alpha lock, basically, if I just really quick do it, if I draw this shape, I turn on alpha lock with 2 fingers swiping. Oops, that was hard to see. 2 fingers swiping to the right. And I have this checkerboard pattern, or I can check if I tap and alpha lock is selected. Now anything that I add to it will only draw within the confines of that shape. I can't draw over here. So it's really great when you want to keep that shape but add something to just that shape area. So let me go back. Okay. And I'm selecting the color I had previously selected by tapping and holding that little circle. And this video will be available afterwards on YouTube permanently. So if you want to go back and rewatch parts of it, if you missed it, or you want to like get a better grasp on certain concept, that's also really great. So you'll be able to watch that anytime. Okay, so for this next layer, we're on that new layer. We're gonna draw a new cactus. We're gonna draw those like tall, skinny ones that don't have arms. So I'm gonna start this one a little lower, and I wanna overlap this, and you'll see why a little bit later. So I'm just gonna draw like another same kind of column shape, and maybe one over here. And I know it's hard to see them overlapping, but it will look good, trust me. And then maybe one more over here. That one's kind of like going out, kind of leaning that way. Cool. So draw 3 little columns that are rounded up at the top. This is like a little grouping of those tall, skinny cacti that don't have arms. I don't know what they're all called. I probably could look them up. They have names, I'm sure. And then I'm gonna select the eraser. We still have syrup as our eraser. We haven't changed that. And then we're just gonna clean that up at the bottom, and so they're all straight across. It's a really easy way to just make sure that everything's level and in line. Okay, cool, I think we're good. We're gonna keep going. Now I wanna add some texture to these. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in. So good, here's another way to get to see alpha lock. We'll use this a few times, so if you want to get clear on it, just keep following along. I'm going to swipe with 2 fingers to the right. Now I have my checkerboard pattern, and then I can choose, I'm going to choose like a lighter green this time, just a little bit lighter. I'm going to go back to my brushes now. We're going to change brushes, and we're going to go to painting and choose the old brush again. Since that was the last brush in that set we had selected, it's already selected when I go to that set. So old brush again. And then just draw. And now that I've done it once, I kind of want to get a little bit lighter green. So I'm going to redo that. There we go. So really easy. You don't need many strokes, just kind of like that. Just add a little bit of something, something. And now we're going to add the rib marks, like those lines that we did like on this one. So I'm gonna choose a darker green, like that maybe. And then we're gonna go back to the brushes. We're changing brushes again for this. Going back to the inking set and choosing syrup, or if you're on Procreate 4, Studio Pen. And then we're gonna add those rib. Okay, so that color obviously doesn't work. It's a little not enough contrast. So I'm gonna select this color by doing the eyedropper. So I tap and hold, and then I have this eyedropper I can select. And then I'm gonna go in here and choose, there we go. Those should have enough contrast to look good and be able to see those lines. Go lighter pressure so they'll be thinner. And then just draw 3 lines down each of these cacti. Cool. Okay, and I can already tell in my drawing, and yours probably looks totally different than mine, or at least a little bit different, the way that these like lines are all like hitting each other. So I'm gonna probably move this around, but I'll get to that later. So if that is bothering you too about my drawing, I got you, don't worry. Cool, so that one's good. We're gonna add one more cactus. So we're gonna put this cactus actually on the same layer. I'm not gonna create a new layer for this because the cactus is gonna be over here and it's not gonna overlap anything that I've already drawn. So that's a good way to use your layers more efficiently, because as we mentioned, you do run out at a certain point. So if you have things that don't touch each other, most of the time, it's okay for you to just put them on the same layer. So that's what we're gonna do. So for the color, I'm gonna make this one darker, but I'm gonna go maybe cooler, like right there. So like a cooler dark green. And then we're still using syrup from the inking set, or Studio Pen if you have Procreate 4. And then this one, I'm gonna put just...
Say that one more time. Which brush?
We're using syrup from the inking set. or Studio Pen if you don't have Procreate 5. And if you notice, I started to draw, and I'm glad this happened because this happens a lot, and you're like, what's happening? And some of you might have already guessed why that is because I still have Alpha Lock turned on. So I can't add more shapes to places that aren't within this shape I already drew unless I turn it off. So swipe with 2 fingers to the right, oops, and now it's off, and now I can like add new stuff. So the gesture is really handy because you do end up going back and forth between turning it on and turning it off a lot when you're working in a drawing where you're using Alpha Lock. So, so this one's gonna be like those round, like fat kind of cacti. So just kind of like an oval shape like that. And then we're gonna add some texture to that next. So let's choose a color that's a bit lighter. I'm gonna go a little bit warmer too. I kind of like when I mix greens, especially like going from a darker green to a lighter green, usually I do my lighter greens more warm, my darker greens more cool, and that's just totally an artist preference. But play around with like the hue a little bit and also the saturation. Otherwise things can look a little flat. Okay, so I've got that lighter color selected. And now I'm gonna switch brushes. And the brush I'm going to use is, where was it? Painting, it's from the painting set, and it was Old Brush. So we're using the same brush that we've been using to do the texture the whole time. So Old Brush from the painting set. And for this one, okay, so now I forgot to turn Alpha Lock on, so it's like messing up. So turn on Alpha Lock. So that was a swipe right with 2 fingers. Now, there we go. So now I'm gonna do one down the middle, and then for these, I'm gonna kind of like do them in like concentric curves to kind of give this like a round shape. So this can help add dimension. We're not adding really any shading to this drawing. So these kind of lines and like the way that these lines curve help give your piece more dimension. So there we go. That's what that one looks like. And now I'm gonna add my ribs as well, which are those lines. I kind of messed that up right there. Let me fix that. It kind of...
And then she's doing that, a whole bunch of people were asking again, the texture brush, we're using Old
Brush from the painting set.
And when we were drawing that
for the texture.
Oval, that was
syrup or Studio Pen if you're in a previous version of Procreate. Cool. Okay, so now I'm going to add my ribs. I'm going to choose a lighter green, maybe a little warmer, something like that. And we're going to switch brushes again now, so pay attention. We're going to go to inking, and we're going to go back to syrup. So this is the syrup's ones we've been using for all these like not textured lines and shapes and stuff. And then same thing. I'm going to go a little thinner. We want to do those kind of like concentric curving shapes to help give this a little dimension, a little bit of shape. If we just drew a bunch of straight lines, it really wouldn't look like a round 3D object. And there we go. So now we have 3 cacti.
We should be coming live right now.
Okay, sorry about that. I forgot to plug in my phone, rookie mistake. And it was like low battery. So hopefully you guys are coming back in. Are we okay on YouTube?
Yeah, we're good on YouTube. We're back.
Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. So I was saying about screen protectors. I use a matte glass screen protector. The brand I use, I have a link to it on my FAQ page on my website. So if you go to bardotbrush.com/FAQ, maybe Jeff can throw up a link. You can see the one that I use. So, and it does help, like the screen by itself, the glass is really sticky. It's not that great for drawing. And this just gives it a really like smooth feel. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. Obviously this drawing is a lot of green, and if you know me at all, which some of you follow me, like I love color. So we're gonna like add some color to this. So I wanna give these like a little pop of color. So we're gonna add some flowers to our cacti. So we're gonna start with this guy since we were already over here. I'm gonna choose like a magenta kind of color, maybe like something right there. That's the color that I'm choosing. So like a nice magenta. Instagram just ended. Hold on, let me get back on Instagram for you guys. Okay. Sorry about that. Instagram just ended and I put it back on. So, okay, so that's the pink that I'm choosing. And then
let's hold on for a second, just as everyone's.
All right, we're pausing one sec.
But yeah, just heads up, Instagram has a 1 hour cap.
Yeah, so I have to like restart it after an hour. So I hope you guys join back in. Maybe I can take a question or two while they're coming back in.
Yeah, absolutely. We may be losing. I just want to make sure we're not losing too much. We're losing a little quality. No, YouTube's coming.
Any questions?
I'm just trying to see.
Welcome back, Instagram people. Sorry about that.
Are you still on right now?
Yeah, we're still on. We're still going. I'm still here. Okay. Hi, guys.
Okay, okay, good. We're back to good on YouTube.
Okay. Any questions I can answer real quick while people are trickling back in on Insta?
A little blurry. Yeah, guys, we should have that all back. Someone was just saying if Lisa's going a little quick. The awesome thing is, you guys, is YouTube is the place to come back and watch us over and over and over again.
I'll try to slow down a little bit more. I do tend to go fast when I'm teaching. But this video will be available in its entirety on YouTube afterwards, so you can always go back and watch it at a slower rate if you want to, and pause it whenever you want. So that's always an option. But I will try and slow down. Thank you for the feedback, because I do tend to go quickly. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into our drawing now. So we're adding a pop of color to our cactus by adding some flowers. And I just chose this color of like magenta pink kind of color. I'm going to go over to my layers panel next. Oops. And then I'm going to turn off alpha lock because I'm going to just keep adding to the same layer. So swipe right with 2 fingers. My plant keeps getting in the way. And then we're using the same syrup brush. I haven't changed brushes since I did the rib stripey marks. And so for the flower, I want to get some like kind of pointed petals. So I want you to try using this like flicking motion. So where you're like shoop, 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 and it gives you these nice tapers on the end of your brush mark. If I just try to draw it with like consistent pressure, that's what it would look like. So if you try this flicking motion, you can get a different shape. So that's what I'm doing here. So you can try that out, add as many petals as you would like, whatever shape you want to do. And then I'm going to add a darker color on top, just for a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to go back to my color picker and just choose like a little bit darker of that same color and just add a few more marks on top. There we go. I think that looks pretty cool. Gives a little bit of dimension. So now I'm going to go over to these other cacti and I'm going to add some flowers probably to like this one and this one. So I'm going to go to my color picker again and I'm going to do like a reddish orange, I think, for these. So that's the color that I'm choosing for that. So if you want to pick that out, you can. And then I'm going to do the same like flicking motion for these to make a flower here and a flower here. So that would be like that. I'm just kind of like whoop, whoop, whoop with the sound effects, right? There we go. And then I have these nice pointed petals instead of like, I could try and draw them, like this, but that's not as efficient as just, using your tools in a different way. So I'm going to do this one too. So just some nice little flowers there. Oops, that one's probably a little too tall. Gotta love undo, because you're like, oh, that one didn't come out how I liked it. I can just undo. 2-finger tap again, for those that missed that, to undo. And I do a lot. Like, it happens so fast, you're like, undo, do it again. You get a really good workflow with that, where you're like, oh, that one didn't come out exactly right, so I'm gonna redo it. And then I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the other flower, which is add a darker color, just a few strokes underneath. So I'm going to go to my color picker and go a little darker and a little redder too. A little more like towards the red.
I'm sorry, Lisa, which brush are you on again for the flowers?
We are using syrup.
So we're back to the main brush we've been using.
Or Studio Pen if you have Procreate 4, if you don't have syrup. And then I'm just gonna draw a few strokes there, just like a little shorter. And here as well. So you can see I'm like zoomed all the way. If you zoom all the way in, that's when it starts getting like really pixelated, but that's okay. That doesn't really matter because we're not gonna zoom in that far. Okay, so now I've got a little pop of color on my cacti. And I think we need to ground these guys a little bit. So let's add some ground. Do we have any questions before I keep moving on?
We're doing really good. I think that's where we're at. Yeah, we're doing great.
Cool. Then I hope that means you guys are following along well. Okay, so we're gonna add some ground. We're gonna create another layer. We're gonna put it on top of all the other layers. And then I'm gonna choose kind of like a orangey, not super, like a reddish orange kind of color. That's the color that I'm deciding to choose. You can see that. And then we're gonna go to the calligraphy set. So we're changing brushes now. We're gonna go to the calligraphy set, which is here. And the brush we're gonna choose is chalk. And all versions of Procreate should have this chalk brush. So again, that was chalk from the calligraphy set. Okay, and now I'm gonna add a ground, and I mentioned before, we don't want any part of our drawing to go off the edge of the canvas, which you'll see why in a little bit, but for the ground, I'm gonna use this kind of like sweeping motion where I'm like picking up my pen like a broom. So I'm not just like going like this really hard. I'll show you what it looks like. So let me actually center that a little bit more. There we go. There we go. So, and it's very light. And when I do that, then I get these nice tapered edges at the edge of the ground. So it's like got some nice interesting shapes there at the sides. You can also go like this way. I'm just kind of lightening my pressure as I get to the end of that stroke. And then kind of narrowing it a little bit as I go down to kind of make this nice shape, because it's kind of like ground floating in midair. I'm not like coloring the whole thing all the way across. So you can do sweeping or you can go that way. And then that light touch also gives you the nice texture of this chalk brush. Whereas if I drew it really hard, you would lose that texture. So that's kind of what that looks like. So go ahead and add in the ground, and it's okay that we're covering up our cactus. You'll see why in just a minute. So that's what that ground area looks like. I'll zoom in for you. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going now. Hopefully you guys got that. I'll explain what I'm gonna do while you're maybe finishing that up. So now we're gonna add a really fun visual effect to our illustration using a blend mode. And blend modes determine how layers interact with each other when they overlap. So it makes a lot more sense when you see it happening. So we're gonna go ahead and go to our layers panel, which is the little two squares. And we're gonna go to the one with the two cacti. So for me, it's layer 2. So it's got the 2 sets of cacti. And then tap the N. And then if you're in Procreate 5, it'll look like mine. If you're in Procreate 4, you'll have like options along the bottom. So it might look a little bit different. But if you scroll down, you'll see where these 2 layers overlap changes. And all these different effects, they do different things. Sometimes they'll lighten where they overlap. Sometimes they'll adjust color. Like the best way to get to know these is just to see what they do. But for our purposes, we're gonna go all the way to the top and choose multiply. And multiply will basically like darken wherever 2 layers overlap. So that's what we're gonna do there. So now we have this cool like darkening thing happening, you know, where they overlap. And these are still a little there's too much craziness kind of happening there. So we'll adjust that in just a sec. But I also want to go to the ground layer. So the one with the orange right there, which is the topmost layer right now. And we're gonna turn multiply blend mode on for that. So we're tapping the N again, scrolling all the way to multiply. So we have this cool overlapping effect happening down here as well.
Show that one more time on the last layer.
Yeah, so what we did, there we go. So I'm selecting the layer with the ground, with the like orange ground, tapping N, and then scrolling to multiply. If you're on Procreate 4, it'll be, there'll be options along the bottom. I forget exactly what it looks like, but look for multiply. And so now it darkens whatever overlaps. Okay, so now I've got this cool effect happening. I think now I'm gonna go ahead and like move things around. I know I've been talking about doing that for a bit. So I'm gonna go to the layer with the 2 cacti. So for me, that's layer 2. And then I'm gonna select basically these 3, this group of 3, and I'm gonna move them. So to do that, I'm gonna go over here. There's a little S icon, which is the selection tool. Oops, there we go, tap it. And then this bar will come up along the bottom. And generally, I pretty much exclusively use freehand to make my selections. There are other modes that you can use to like draw rectangle selections and circle selections and stuff like that. But I generally just use freehand. So that's what I'm gonna do here. So I can move it around, and then all you do is just draw a line around wherever you want. These are really close to each other down here, so it's a little hard to see. So I'm zooming in to make sure I don't accidentally get this one, and just make a selection. Now I can be really like loose with it and make a selection around that. So that's how you can just select around something, freehand selection. And then once I've made my selection, I can go over to the arrow icon, which is right next to it. And this is the transform mode. So this lets you move things around and manipulate things. So I'm just gonna, basically I can use my Apple Pencil, or I can use my finger, and now I can move it around wherever I want it to go, which I think I want it to overlap a little bit, but not too much. So like, probably like right there. To me, that looks good. For your art, wherever you want it to be. So that's how and there's other things that you can do. There's freeform. If you go to freeform, then you can like just move it and do it all kinds of weird, wacky ways. If you have magnetics turned on, you get these nice guidelines. So if you just want to move it directly to the side or at this angle, you can use magnetics to do that. You can also like flip it this way. There's a bunch of other things like distort. You can grab the corners and like, if you wanted to, edit some perspective or something like that, that can be pretty handy. So there's a bunch of different things. I just recommend like playing and seeing, but generally you're probably gonna be in either freeform or uniform. Uniform makes sure that like, it's always at that same ratio and it won't like get stretched out. Okay, so yeah, that's where I was at. And then you just tap again to get out of it. Cool, so there we go. And I think that was all looking pretty good. So, cool, any questions? We're gonna move on to the next thing.
Can magnetic help me put objects exactly in the middle?
You know what, I wish there was a tool for placing something directly in the middle, like some guides or something like that, but no. Sadly, no. I will show you a little trick that I use really quick to make sure something is perfectly centered, and it's not the best, but it works. So let me you don't have to follow along, you don't have to do this, just watch. I'm just gonna create a layer, grab like black or something. Okay, so there's this other cool feature, which I'll show you in a little bit. Oh, now I'm showing it to you early. I'm going out of order. Okay, I'm gonna come back to that because this all make more sense later. So sorry, I'm ad-libbing and I'm messing myself up. I'll come back to that question. Okay, so the next thing we wanna do, so confession. I am not like good at making backgrounds for my art. Like I really love drawing things on a white background and then I usually just leave it like that. So I've really been trying to push myself to like add something to the background, even if it's just like a color or something like that. So let's add a background to this because I think it's going to be more interesting if we do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change our background color. So if we go to our layers panel and you go down to the bottom, it'll say background color. And if you tap on that, it lets you change your background to whatever color you want, like that. But we're going to choose kind of like a warm light pink, something like that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So there's the color that I selected. If you want to kind of, let's see, we're just below 3 o'clock and I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock. So like a nice light pink. So now I'll get out of there. And if once I've done that, you can see that, you know, it's because I have multiply blend mode turned on these layers, like the colors look really kind of gross and they're interacting with the pink. They're darkening the pink and the green together and they look kind of funky. So I'm going to add another element to this drawing, which is like a white kind of circle. So we get those colors back, which will make sense in just a second. So now what I want to do is I'm gonna create a new layer. So just tap the plus from the layers menu, and then we're gonna move this layer down below all the other layers. So just tap and hold and then drag it down like that. So now it's at the bottom. We have a new layer below all the other layers. Okay, and now we're gonna go to the color picker. And I want to choose a pure white value. And you might have seen me maybe do this before. But to choose you could do this and like try and find like the perfect white. And it's really hard to kind of get exactly the white right. But if you tap somewhere near that, 2 taps, tap, tap. Oops, I wasn't close enough. Tap, tap. It'll snap to just a pure white value. And this works at different areas around the color wheel. So you can get like a pure black or like a, you know, very saturated orange with no black in it. But I most often use this to grab white because that's like the hardest one to get perfect. You can also select colors using these, I'm in value right now. There's these sliders, but I prefer the disc, So let's select white and we're gonna change brushes now. So pay attention. The brush we're going to be using is in the drawing set. And this set is, I believe, exclusive to Procreate 5. I don't think Procreate 4 people have this. So I'll give you an alternative in just a second. So we're gonna choose the Blackburn brush from the drawing set. So if you have Procreate 5, we're going to the drawing set and we're choosing Blackburn. And if you don't have Procreate 5, I forget what alternative for this one actually. Let me see. Okay, if you don't have Procreate 5, let me try this. Hold on. Okay, we'll do that one. Oh, that's a Procreate 5 brush. Let's try dry ink, which is in the inking set. So if you have Procreate 4, don't have Procreate 5, let's go to the inking set and choose dry ink. And if you do have it, we're going to the drawing set and choosing Blackburn. Cool, I think hopefully everybody got that. Okay, and now we're just gonna draw kind of like an oval shape behind everything, kind of color that in roughly. The like more lightly you color things in, you'll get like some nice texture left over. Whereas if you do heavy pressure, you won't get that. And maybe I'll even like add some light strokes around the edges to give me even more like cool texture. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. So it looks kind of like dry paint, like a dry brush look. Okay, so pretty simple. And I think if you're in Procreate 4, that brush doesn't have the same kind of texture, but you could just do a solid circle. I wanted to do something with texture. All right.
So I was just asking, I have trouble getting smooth lines. You mentioned something about that earlier.
Yeah, there are settings in brushes that you can change to make it more smooth, and I'll show you that really quick. So if you go to any brush and you tap into it, you'll go to the brush studio, and these are all the many settings that are used to make a brush. But there's a setting called Streamline, which I'm in the stroke path tab. And Streamline, if you turn that up, that'll make all of your marks, it'll kind of smooth them out for you. So you can see, you know, it's probably hard to see, but you could feel it if you were to try it. And then if they're down, you know, it more follows exactly where your pencil is versus like smoothing them out as you go. So that is a setting if you want to turn it on a brush so you can get really smooth lines, but also like that just comes with experience too. You will get better at drawing smooth lines the more you practice. So I recommend doing the practice and like getting your hand to behave that way because you'll be able to get a lot more control in your art versus just relying on it to fix it for you. So let me cancel out of there. Okay, so we've got a background, we've got our cacti. The one other thing I want to add to this is we need like a nice big sun in our illustration. So let's go ahead and add a new layer above. Sorry, this one shouldn't be here. That's from when I tried to show you guys something. So we're gonna add a layer above all the others. So I'm gonna tap on the top layer, tap plus, and then I'm gonna choose kind of a yellow. So really saturated yellow, not like super yellow. I want it to be a little warm. So I'm gonna go like right there. So you can see the color that I selected right there if you wanna grab that yourself. Drinking water. Okay. And then for the brush, we're gonna go over to brushes, change brushes now. We're gonna go to inking.
And real quick before we change brushes, what brush were we on for the
like the white part
of the circle? Yeah.
That was Blackburn from the drawing set, or if you're in Procreate 4, dry ink from the inking set.
Awesome.
Okay, so now that we're switching brushes, we're gonna go back to the inking set and choose that syrup brush again. So that's the one we've been using a lot for this drawing. So we're getting syrup from the inking set to draw the sun. Tap out of there. Okay, so we want a sun that is a circle, and drawing circles is definitely a skill. It takes a lot of practice. So, you know, I could freehand it and draw my sun, and it's pretty, you know, it's fine. I don't mind that it's actually not perfectly circular, but if you wanted to get a perfectly circular sun, there is a feature built in to Procreate. I'm gonna get a little warmer, that lets you do that, and it's called Quick Shape. So if you draw a circle and then you don't lift your pencil up, you'll get this like shape that you can manipulate. So I still haven't lifted my pencil up. And then if you take one more finger and put it anywhere else on the canvas, on the screen I should say, it'll turn into a perfect circle, and I can get it exactly where I want it to be, like that. And this works, I'm gonna get black so I can show you. This works for lines, so quick line is what they call it. So if you draw trying to draw a straight line, and it's kind of like that, don't let go of your pencil and then you get a straight line. And if you put another finger down, it'll snap. So you can get a perfectly horizontal line or a perfectly vertical line that way. You can also do it with so that's a really badly, sorry, I'm covering the camera. Let me do that again. Like a really badly drawn square, but I'm not letting go, and it straightens out the lines, and if I put another finger down, it makes it into a square, like a perfect square. And triangles also work. Oops, sometimes it doesn't work perfectly. You can make like crazy parallelogram, I don't know, like crazy shapes like that. Arcs also do it. There's an arc. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can like make more perfect lines and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill in my sun. I'm going back to my history and choosing that yellow, and then just gonna drop that in. I kind of a little nib right there. I'm gonna erase that. Okay, cool. Okay, so I've got the sun now, and you might already guess what I might do next because it's covering up my cactus, but that's okay. Because I'm gonna go to my layers panel, I'm gonna tap the N, and then I'm gonna turn on multiply blend mode, which is what we've been using to make this cool like overlapping effect. So just scroll on up to multiply, and then we've got this cool orange happening because the yellow and the pink are mixing together and making this orange, and over here it's yellow still because it's got white behind it. So I really like the way that that is looking. Awesome. So this is the illustration portion of this piece, but we're not quite done yet. I'm going to show you one more cool thing that you can do, but I wanted to see if there's any questions before I move on to the next little part of this.
YouTube's been doing great. Everyone everywhere has been trying to help answer questions as well as we go, which is amazing.
You guys rock. Thank you guys so much.
Everybody.
It's all about supporting each other, and I love that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, in so many different ways right now, right? That's what this is all about too, is everyone getting to learn, getting to have some fun on a Friday while most of us are stuck at home whether we want to be or not.
Yep. Okay, so the next thing...
Real quick.
Question?
Someone was just saying, how did you change the color of the sun again?
How did I... Yes. Yeah. I'll do that one more time. So I'm just going to set it back to how it was. Okay, so that's what it looked like when I drew it. To get that effect, I turned on the multiply blend mode, which is what we did to like create these little darker areas here. So you go to the N on the layer, and then if you're in Procreate 5, it'll look like this. If you're in Procreate 4, it'll be like in a list along the bottom, but you just scroll all the way up to multiply, and multiply darkens anything that overlaps, and it also like mixes colors. So that's why now we're getting an orange here instead of yellow, because the yellow is mixing with the pink and it makes this really nice orange, which I love the way it looks in this case. And then it's kind of darkening and mixing wherever anywhere it overlaps in any of the layers that are below it. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm looking at my drawing, and it's a little off center. It's not like too bad. Last time I did this, it was more off center and it was more obvious, but maybe I want it to be a little more center, a little more space down here at the bottom. But I could do it, and don't do this, but I could go ahead and select all my layers and then move the whole thing up. And to select multiple layers, you just swipe to the right, just one little swipe. And then now I have multiple layers selected. I could like move that up a little bit, but I'm not gonna do that, and there's a reason why. So Procreate is a raster-based program, meaning it works in pixels. So if you like zoom way in, you'll see all the little pixels. And anytime you move things around on your canvas, the edges of the pixels get a little bit more degraded. Like they'll be the best they're gonna be when you lay down your strokes. But if you move them around a bunch of times, they'll get softer and softer the more you move them around. So I try to avoid moving things around if I can, but unless I really need to. The higher resolution your canvas is, the less this is a problem. But if you had like a lower resolution canvases, you'd start to see that degradation, is that the right word? A lot more. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the actions menu, which is the little wrench icon right next to where it says gallery. And then I'm going to go to where it says canvas. And then I'm going to go to crop and resize. So I'm just going to tap crop and resize, which again is the actions menu, canvas, crop and resize. And now what I can do instead is I can just drag the whole like edges of the canvas down a little bit like that. So now I've moved everything around by just moving like the edges of the canvas really. So that's a good way to like reframe something, as long as that's kind of why I told you guys not to put anything too close to the edge, because I knew we'd be doing this. But actually we're going to do something else right now, which is I'm going to add some more space above my drawing because we're gonna add something right above the drawing. So all I have to do is grab this edge and just drag it up. So now we have like a vertical orientation, and we've got some space up at the top. So go ahead and add a little bit more space up at the top. Down here, you'll see like it's changed my pixels. So I still have 3,000 pixels this way, but now I have more pixels this way. And this can also affect your layer count, which I think it tells you. So see here, the bigger I make it, the less layers I have available. So now I only have 20 layers, but my canvas is bigger. It's 58, 55 by 36, 81. So it does affect the amount of layers you have. So if you've already used up your layer count, you can't make your canvas any bigger. So you have to get creative with that. So yeah, I'll add about that much more space, and I'm still fine. I've got plenty of layers. So go ahead and do that, and then hit done when you're done with that. So now we've got a little bit of space right there. So the next thing we're gonna do is actually I'm gonna show you guys how to add text to your Procreate work. So text meaning like actual fonts. You could type stuff in and choose a font and that kind of stuff. So that's what we're gonna do now. Let me drink a little water. Pregnant ladies gotta drink a lot of water. Okay, so to add text, we're gonna go to the action menu here, the little wrench icon, and then you go to where it says add. It's like the first one with the plus sign, and then you choose add text, which is right there. And when you do that, a little thing will pop up and you can start typing something in. So I originally gave this class at a conference called Alt Summit in Palm Springs. So we typed Palm Springs. I don't know if we should type something different this time. Like, maybe you guys can throw out some suggestions. Like, it just said Palm Springs and it looked like a travel poster or something like that, but
Why not do
should we
Palm
just
Springs?
do Palm
It
Springs?
looks cool. Plus,
We can all like
Some of
pretend.
us want to pretend we're in Palm Springs.
Yeah, let's pretend that we can vacation right now and we're out in Palm Springs at a colorful hotel with cactus, and it's really beautiful and we can swim in the pool. We're gonna pretend we're going on a journey here. So I'm gonna do it in all caps. So I'm gonna hit caps lock. If you have a smaller iPad screen, you might not see caps lock, but you can use the shift key.
And by the way, one person is actually in Palm Springs right now.
Oh,
so
cool.
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 Who's hanging out in Palm Springs?
I love Palm Springs. Okay, Palm Springs. And you can't, obviously this yellow is really hard to see, but that's okay. Palm Springs. So type that in, and then we're going to go to where it says edit style.
And real quick, one more time, where did we go to get the text?
Yeah, it's the actions menu, which is the wrench. Here, I'll do it all again, just so you guys can see it. So the actions menu, which is the wrench, add, the first option under that menu, and then add text. And then I'm gonna type in Palm Springs. Cool. Palm Springs. And now I'm gonna edit style. So it's that little button, it says edit style. And now we have all the design options where we can choose fonts and adjust things. But the first thing I'm gonna do is change the color because I can't read that. So I'm gonna go to the color picker, so just tap that. And I'm gonna just make it white. If your pink you chose as a background makes it hard to see white, like reddish orange might be a good color, or like an orange color to pick for your text, but you can pick whatever color you want. And then I'm gonna tap out of that and that'll bring this back up. So the first thing I wanna do is change my font, and the font that I'm deciding to choose is called Futura. And that should be like default on all iPads, I think, so you guys should all have that font, but you can choose a different one if you want. So I'm gonna choose Futura, and then I'm gonna choose Futura Bold, so I'm gonna choose Bold right there. And then I'm going to adjust the tracking of my letters. And tracking is adjusting the space between all the letters as a whole. So like all the letters will have equally spaced apart. So if I turn it up, it'll go, they'll go outwards. If I turn it down, they'll get really close to each other. So this is the tracking, but I'm gonna go out, kind of spread them apart a bit like that. And then since it's starting to like go down to the next line because there's not enough room. I just need to like drag this over a little bit. And I can move this up there. Maybe adjust it a little bit differently if I want. There we go. So we have kind of this like Wes Anderson, future bold, spaced apart, tracked apart kind of look. So there's that. So now I can just hit done. And there we go. And now we have some text on there. And that's it. That's the whole drawing. I hope you guys really enjoyed that and had fun drawing that. So that's the whole thing for that drawing. But before, the last thing I want to show you is how to get your artwork out of Procreate so that you can print it or share it online or whatever you want. So
someone was actually just asking that. How do we save our work?
Good question. So to export your work, we go to the wrench icon, which is the actions menu. And then we have an option called share. So you tap share. And then there's some different options for sharing. So generally I'll either use PNG or JPEG if I'm gonna be like printing it or posting it online. And this is like a flattened version of your art, so it's not like editable or anything like that. So it's great for if you're gonna print it or post it. PNG is technically better, like JPEG will compress your art a little bit, so it really can't tell, like unless it's really not that big a deal. Either one of those are gonna be good for you. Technically, PNG is better, but yeah. So there's some other options too, like PSD will save it as a Photoshop file, so you can open it up in Photoshop and like you'll still have all your layers and everything, and you can do whatever you want with it in Photoshop. And then like Procreate is if you wanted to back this up, like that's what I would use. So it'll be a Procreate file. You can only open it in Procreate, but it'll have all, like it'll be just like you opened it up in Procreate. So that's what I usually use if I want to like back something up to a different thing, like not my iPad. But let's just choose PNG. And then you can just choose, you can either, so a couple things. What I most often do, because usually I'm exporting something and then I'm putting it straight to Instagram or something right after that. So if you have an iPhone, it's really great because you can choose AirDrop, and then you can just like, as long as your iPhone has AirDrop turned on, you can just drop it right to your iPhone and it transfers over. So that's a really handy tool to use to like get it very quickly to your iPhone, or if you have a Mac, to your computer. But for now, we'll just choose save image. And so now I have that image saved in my camera roll that I can do whatever I want with. And you can post it and do whatever you want. So speaking of that, let me go back to my slides. Okay, there we go. So I would love to see what you made. So please do tag me if you share your work and you're posting to Instagram, hashtag Bardot Brush, or you can tag at Bardot Brush. I personally am Lisa Bardot on Instagram, so tag away. Like, I want to see everything that you guys are making. It just makes me feel so good. So please do share. And then I wanted to go back to this slide because we're going to be doing a giveaway. So we're done with that part of it. I do have an animation demo that I'm going to be showing you guys. So if you want to learn a little bit about animation, really, we're going to do it really quickly. It's not a follow-on long. It's just for you guys to learn a little bit. But we will do a giveaway after that. So if you text Procreate to 55444, I'm giving away some decals like I have on my Apple Pencil. They're from dbrand.com. And as well as some of my brush sets and 2 master bundles, which contain all of my brushes. So definitely do that. Sign up. You're basically signing up for our email newsletter, which you'll get some cool stuff in your inbox about like making art every day and other stuff, sales and things like that. So go ahead and do that now. We do have an international number. Yeah?
I'm going to be adding it in again in just a second.
Okay, Jeff's going to share the international number because I don't think this works internationally. I'm in the US. I'm in California. So go ahead and do that. And then we can get into the animation demo. Do we have any questions while I have that slide up for a sec?
I'm just looking to Let's see.
I'm almost out of water, you guys. Doing really good today. Do you love my cup? You can like, when you finish a whole thing of this, you move this little thing up and it lets you track like how much water you drink, which I'm supposed to be drinking 1 gallon a day right now because I'm pregnant. So that's a lot of water. Cool, we ready to move on then? Or?
Just a second, almost done. Let's get everything out to everybody. Just checking messages. We have lots coming in. Guys, the international number I'll have up in just a split second for everyone again in the chat for Instagram, YouTube.
Okay.
Instagram, you guys take an extra second.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jeff will share that in the comments. So look out for that if you're international. But now we're gonna talk about animation, and animation is so very fun. Like it is so fun to take one of your illustrations and then animate it, even if it's just a little bit. You make it and you're just like, oh, it's so cool. And it's like a fun way to spend your time, a fun way to make art that just has that little bit of extra something, and it's very, very satisfying. And Procreate 5 makes this so much easier because they added all these really great animation tools, which I'll show you. So I'm just gonna quickly do it. You don't need to follow along or anything like that. This is just kind of so you can get a little taste of what it looks like. And I will be sending out some resources to you guys. So if you signed up here, I'm gonna be emailing all these people some resources. So I have an intro to Procreate class, which goes over a lot of the stuff we've covered today and more. And that's a free video, and I'll send you out some stuff about animation and other tutorials that you guys might find useful. So that's what sign up there as well. Okay.
And real, well, I mean, I know you're about to start. We'll ask this at the end. So guys on YouTube who's asking, well, we can ask now. Did we go over the thing that you were trying to show us about the color black earlier in the video that you were going to be doing?
Oh, I didn't. Okay. Remind me at Q&A and I'll show you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So we'll go over that at Q&A, you guys. So thanks for asking a couple of you guys, about that, and we'll talk about it more just after animation. So keep staying tuned.
Stay tuned. Well, I will get to that because it is like kind of a handy trick that I just made up. It's okay. So yeah, you don't need to follow along. I'm just going to quickly go through and show you a couple things about animation. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to create a new canvas. There's one that I already created for animation. Animation will ultimately be exported as a video file, and you only have to go so big. Like, you don't need a 5,000 by 4,000 pixel resolution canvas if you're exporting video, because it doesn't need it to be that big. So the one I chose, I think, was, I'm going to my canvas. So action menu, canvas information. So if you want to check out what size canvas you have, 1920 by 1400 is the size that I am using for this. This section also has some really cool info. You can add a picture of yourself and sign your art, so that information is embedded into the file. It goes over how many layers you have and how many layers you've used, color profile, video settings. The statistics, though, that's really cool because it shows you how long you spent on a drawing, and not just like, it doesn't count if you took a break from it for a while, and it's just like actual time you spent with the pencil to the screen. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set a background color. I am a huge fan of like teal and aqua, so that's what I'm gonna do. And then I am going to just write a word. So I'm gonna go to my brushes. I am gonna use one from my gouache paint box, which is a set. It's one of my most popular sets, and I just updated it like a month ago. If you've been watching my lives this week, I've been using it all week. It's one of my favorites. So I'm gonna use the brush called Dry Supreme from that set. And I'm just gonna write, let me go a little smaller with my brush size. All right, I'm just gonna write the word hello. Being a perfectionist about it now. Hello. All right, that's a little crooked. I'm gonna just, okay, so I've written the word hello. And then the other thing I'm gonna do, actually I'll just jump right into it. Okay, so I think you guys can all see that pretty well. So that's just flat and it's not animated. So now I'm gonna go ahead and animate that. So to do that, I'm gonna go to the Actions menu and I'm gonna go to the tab that says Canvas. And here it says Animation Assist. And so I'm gonna turn on Animation Assist just by toggling that button here. And when I do that, I get this timeline and some options down along the bottom. So that's what you want to see to make sure you have Animation Assist. And so I'm gonna add a new frame to my animation, and this style of animation, I call it wiggly animation, but technically there's a term for it called boiling line. It's kind of where all the lines look really wavy as the animation progresses, so you'll see in a second. Okay, so the way that animation works in Procreate is it takes each layer that you have created and it translates that as a frame of animation. So if I click here, tap here where it says Add Frame, it will create another layer, or sorry, another frame in the timeline, and then you'll also see in the Layers panel, it adds another layer. So I don't need to worry about here too much because I'm just gonna be working down here. And it also, you notice it like dimmed my previous frame, and this is what's called an onion skin. And there are settings for the onion skin to like how opaque you want that to be and how many like that, but it's really handy because it allows you to use this as a guide as you draw your next frame of animation. So all I'm gonna do is just trace over this, just almost the same. But because I'm drawing it freehand and not like just duplicating a layer or something, there are gonna be very small variations, which you'll see is how you get the motion. So I'm gonna add another frame, so it dims the previous frames, and then I could do that again. I think I'll just do the 3. So I'll write hello. I'm trying to get as close as possible, but it doesn't have to be perfect. The more that you deviate from the previous frame, the more crazy animation will be. Okay, so 3 frames, that's all I'm gonna do for now. And then I'm gonna hit play right here. There's a little play button which will let you preview your animation. So there's an animation. It's like crazy wiggly letters. And honestly, it's a bit too crazy, but that's okay because you can edit or you can adjust these settings. So if you go here where it says settings, you get at the top frames per second. So if you turn that way up, it'll go really fast and that's gonna give somebody a seizure. But I'm gonna go to about 5 maybe. And then we get this kind of like slow, like doo-doo, like playful kind of animation. So that's a really quick and easy way to do animation. And I'm gonna show you one more thing, which is adding a background. Procreate with this new version gives you the ability to add a background layer that stays static throughout your whole animation. So I'll show you that. Basically, I'm gonna add a new frame. I'm gonna move that frame all the way to the beginning. And then I'm gonna draw in something. So let me grab a different, I'm gonna draw. I'm using opaque round because it's got some nice clean edges. And then I'm gonna choose a color that's darker than what I have selected, maybe like that. And then I'm just gonna draw. And it looks like it's in front of the other letters right now, but it actually will be behind it. You'll see in a sec. All right. Color that in. And then if I want to, I can get my eraser and kind of clean these up a little bit if I want them to have like pointy corners instead of weird round corners. But whatever, that's just an aesthetic choice. Okay, good enough. Okay, so now I have this, I want this one frame with the rectangle on it to be static throughout the entire animation. So to do that, I tap on that layer or that frame, tap, this will pop up and I can toggle this as background. And that will only work if it's the first frame. And you can also set a foreground layer. So let me play that so you can see it and then I'll explain that. Cool, so that is unchanged. It's it's in there through the whole animation. You can also set a foreground layer. So you can imagine what this would look like if you wanted to animate a jungle scene. You could draw the whole background of the jungle as your background and it wouldn't move through the animation. But then you could set a foreground layer of having like some trees pop up or plants, and then the animation maybe is like a little tiger walking through that comes out from behind the foreground. So that's how you can like really do some cool stuff with animation. But this is like super simple, super easy, fun. Like you can even turn these into like Instagram stickers if you get a special like artist account. There's a whole way to do it. I haven't done it yet, but I'm actually working on it. We're trying to get some like cool Bardot brush gifts in Instagram stories. So we're working on that. But you can also, so exporting this out, we're gonna go to share. So actions menu, share. And then you can export it as a GIF or an animated PNG or an MP4. And generally what I do is GIF. And then there's some different options. I usually use max resolution because I don't use a super high resolution canvas in the first place. And there's different options. I will say a couple things that if you do export it as an animated GIF, you're gonna have trouble posting it to Instagram because Instagram doesn't support GIFs. And also it needs to be a video that's more than 3 seconds long. And this is like, I don't know, a quarter of a second long. It's really fast. So I use an app called, I'm just gonna save that. Save. I use an app called GIFvid, which I'll show you real quick. And I turn my GIF into a video, so GIF to video. And I have an article all about how to do this, which I'll send you guys that have signed up. And I'll choose that one. I'll choose the highest resolution. Okay, so now what's great about this is it's gonna turn it to like a video file instead of a GIF. So just like you took a video with your phone. But the best thing about this is you can change the number of loops. And hopefully Procreate will add this feature to animation in the future. That'd be really great. So now I've looped this 30 times and now it's a 15-second long video. So it's perfect for putting on stories. If you post it to your feed, like it'll just play over and over again anyway, so it's fine. So I usually do them for about 15 seconds and then you can like export it and save it and post it and stuff like that. So you go here and you save it. So that's a little bit about animation. Let's see, so like I said, I have some tutorials that I'm gonna send you guys after this is over. I have a tutorial on animation, like making animated GIFs in Procreate in like 5 different ways. This is just one of those ways. I made it in Procreate 4. So Procreate 5's animation assist tool wasn't available then, but there still are some really great concepts that you can apply here. And then I also have a Procreate 5 tutorial which shows you exactly how to use the animation tool. So those two combined, you can learn a lot about animation, but I am also working on a new animation tutorial which shows you how to use Procreate 5 to do all that cool animation stuff. And I might even do, like I have kind of a tutorial prepared and I might do a live class of that, which I think would be really fun. So stay tuned for that. Definitely the email newsletter is the best way to go. You can sign up by doing that text thing that we talked about earlier, and I'll send you those resources. So now I'm gonna show you some animations that I made just to give you a little inspiration. There we go, open that. Okay, so I just wanna show you some stuff I've done just to kind of give you an idea of what you can do with animation. There's definitely way more that you can do with animation, but this is basically the same concept where I drew the letters over and over again, and then I kind of added these like marching ant kind of marquee thing going on, and then the background is the pennant. So it was pretty easy to do, and this is what I might do for the class if I do that. So look forward to that. So that's one that I did. This one, I drew the illustration of the girl, and it was a cute illustration, but I was like, oh, it needs a little something, you know? And so I decided to just animate the eyes going back and forth, and I was like, oh, I should like make them blink as well. So I have a way to add something extra special to I mean, it was a good illustration already, but it just gives it that extra something. So it's really fun to do. Here's another one. I was having fun with doing eyes, and I did the little mouth. So it's just like redrawing and moving it that way. And this one, I just literally moved the frame over in each new frame. So I moved the artwork over in each new frame. So that was pretty easy. This one I really like. I drew a picture of an orange and a lemon, and it was just, they had no faces or anything like that. It was just like an orange and a lemon. It was fine. It was like a fine illustration. It wasn't that interesting. And so I was like, oh, maybe I can like animate it, or maybe I'll give them faces. And then I was like, well, maybe I can animate it and have one like rolling away and like the other one gets sad about it. So I just like developing this whole story of characters in my head, and it's really fun to just play along and play around and like imagine little stories in your head. So that's what I did for that one. This one is pretty simple. I just kind of like moved it in every frame a little bit. And then some of the frames had this like cutout of the bite that I added, and I made this for a tutorial I have about drawing. So you can actually draw this cake. So I made it for that. That's one of my tutorials as well. So pretty simple, but it like adds a little bit of fun versus just like a static image of cake. This one, you could see this in my Procreate animation tutorial, but it's just moving it. Every frame, we just move it up a little bit, and then I kind of redrew some of the stars to make them like twinkle. And this one I actually used, we haven't talked about Liquify, but it's a really good tool in Procreate, and I just used it to move the parts of, I didn't redraw anything except for this bubble, and I just moved parts of it in every frame. I just kind of shifted it up a little bit, and I kind of got this cool open close thing happening. So that one's pretty fun. Just another one where I only animated her hair, had it waving. I just kind of drew it a bunch of different times, and it looks like that. This one I drew as part of a Making Art Every Day prompt. One of the prompts in January was broccoli, and I drew broccoli, and again, it was like fine. It was like broccoli, kind of boring. But then I was like, I'll add a face to it, and then I'll like make his hand wave, and now it's like something super cute and special. So, so that little extra thing can make something really cool. And this is like an animated logo for a series of tutorials that I have called People Skills. So if you want to learn how to draw people, it's a really great series. It's free. It's 12 videos so far and counting. And it's like 30, it's going to be 30 different lessons, but there's lessons and assignments and tutorials. And if you want to learn how to draw people, that's a really good one. We'll send that out in the resources email as well, so you can check that out. But I just kind of moved all the letters a little bit and kind of like used Liquify to make the edges look a little different. So yeah, so that's some of the animation that I've done. Animation is super fun. Hopefully gonna do an animation class. Maybe I'll do another live thing, because I think that would be really, really fun. Let's see, let me go back to my slides. Okay, so again, I'll just put this slide up real quick. We're gonna do some Q&A, but definitely tag me if you share your work. I would love, 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 love to see it. So Bardot brush or Lisa Bardot or both, so I can check that out if you're posting on like Instagram, or share in the Facebook group. I want to see it there too. So let me go.
Let's go back to one. We're gonna be closing up the giveaway now.
Now, or do you want to give them a chance to do it while we do Q&A?
A couple more minutes while we do Q&A.
Yeah, so let's do, we're going to do a little Q&A, and while we're doing that, you guys can continue to send that in. So do that now, because I'm going to probably go into Procreate and show some stuff as people ask questions. But this is for the giveaway. We're giving away a couple of these decals. You can make your pencil look like an Apple Pencil. I have them for both versions, like Apple Pencil Gen 1 and Gen 2, so whatever you have, I've got it. So, and then we're gonna give away some brush sets from that I made, as well as a couple of my master bundles, which contain all of my brush sets. So definitely sign up for that. And that's also how you're gonna get all the like resources from this class. Like I'll send you the tutorials I'm talking about and other stuff like that too. So definitely do that. And then we can take some questions.
Well, we had one about black and what you were working on earlier. We just lost Instagram.
Oh, we're only out.
Just over 2 hours.
An hour or two.
Yeah. All right. So let's get Instagram going, and then we're going to do all these questions. First, we're going to show the trick with black. I'll do that. You keep going.
All right. That's okay. I got it. Okay. We're getting our Instagram. Thank you for hanging with me, you guys. We've been doing this for 2 hours now. So my Instagram timed out again because you can only do an hour. But yeah, we're going to take some questions now. So Jeff, what do we got? Oh, yes. You're going to talk about the thing that... Okay, so somebody earlier asked how to get something perfectly centered on your canvas. And I have a little trick. It's by no means like official. It's just kind of a little hack that I figured out how to do. So I'm going to get black. I'm going to get just like a brush. Okay, so I showed you guys about quick shape, how you can like draw a rectangle and then if you hold down, it does that. And then if you put a finger down, it makes it more perfect. So that's what I use to do this. So if I want to figure out where the exact center of this canvas or an area in particular is, this is what I do. So I draw like a rectangle with 3 sides and then I don't let go, and I can even, okay, and now I've let go, and now I go to edit shape. And so here, there's a dot that shows you exactly where the middle of that is. So if I move this to here and this to here, I know the middle is right here. Oops. So if I kind of tap out to finish that, now I can mark, and I know that's the middle. And I can find the middle of this area in the same way. So I'm just holding down, letting go, edit shape. And there's a little dot that tells me exactly where the middle is, so I can tap to get out of quick line and then just kind of, it's not exact, but it does help. So if you want to find out the middle between any 2 given points, that's like a little hack that I use sometimes when I want to like really center things. There is one other way too, which is, I'm going to Actions menu. What is it under? Canvas? Yes, Actions menu, Canvas, Drawing Guide. And that adds grid marks to your canvas. And so that you could also use to help you find the center. You can edit the drawing guide to like make it the grids lines bigger. So, you know, it shows you where the center is. So that's another way you can like get a line, you know, lines to help you guide you, is by using the drawing guide. So there's a couple tips to help you find center of your canvas. So we'll get rid of that. Cancel. Let me turn it off. All right, another question?
I mean, we can just talk about this for a second, but someone was asking, hey, how do I get daily prompts? And I was actually just about to respond in YouTube for that one, but that's something that you can just kind of mention, which is great. Okay,
so to learn about making art every day, which is daily drawing prompts, which I send out once a week, tutorials and resources, motivation. We also have a really great Facebook community to help support you when you're doing this. bardotbrush.com/joinMAE will give you all the information about it. I can show you really quick what at makingarteveryday.com is where the actual prompts, you can see them. And I update it once a week. So on Sunday night, usually pretty late, I'm updating that website. But here you can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're doing the alphabet this month. So every day is a different letter of the alphabet. But usually we've done food this year, animals. I've got some other fun stuff planned for the rest of the year. So that's where you can see all the prompts. You can also see, I have an archive of all the previous prompts that we've done down at the bottom. So like last year was the first year. As that's coming up, you can see we've all the stuff we've done. And I try to cover a variety of subject matter just so you get experience drawing a variety of subject matter. So we've done food, animals, plants, home, childhood, travel, like we've done people. That's when I made that people skills series I told you about. Fashion, where we were practicing drawing clothes, environment. So if you go to any one of these, there, we'll go to one of these. So I have all the prompts that we did, cow, dog, pig. The theme was domestic animals. And then like all the tutorials I made that month that kind of help support you in drawing those things. So highly, highly recommend joining in if you want to improve your drawing skills and just also just develop that creative habit for yourself. Question?
Steve, you cannot fit 35-inch wheels on a stock Jeep without a lift kit. No, the answer is no. You gotta put that lift kit on that Jeep.
Okay. Getting car questions.
Sorry, only because I did know the answer to that one. I had to go there. One question is, what's the difference between color burn and multiply? Someone was asking.
That is an answer that involves a little math. Color burn is just more intense, I would say. And honestly, I would just try it and see if it works for you, because it's easy enough to switch between these modes. And you'll notice that multiply will darken, but color burn will like darken and intensify. So just play around with these blend modes and see what they do, and you'll get an idea of like what it can do, so you'll know which one to choose for any given point in time when you're working on your art.
All right, so I don't see any new questions popping. Oh, tips for drawing icing on donuts and cake, etc., making it stand out as icing instead of just blending in. So
yeah,
how something to stand out?
I would recommend, I actually have a tutorial. I have tutorials for donuts and cake. I'm going to go to my tutorials page. So this is my website, you guys. I'm going to my tutorials page, which has all my tutorials on it that I've ever made. But I do have one for how to draw a piece of cake, and you can see the style that I'm, instructing about. So you can check that one out. It is kind of like a semi-realistic dimensional drawing of cake. And I have one about donuts as well. So this is the donut one. There we go. And so we've got a little bit of dimension happening. It's all about the shading. Like you really got to get like a lot of contrast in the shading. And this tells you like how to pick good colors also to shade with. So I highly recommend checking one of those two tutorials out for instruction about icing and frosting.
And Avery over on YouTube's asking, can you show the stylized self-portrait? That was actually from yesterday, the self-portrait was from. That she drew, and as you're talking about the animation one with the eye, so I'm not sure what you were talking about.
Yeah, yesterday I drew self-portrait of myself, whoops, which I'll just pull up real quick, but there it is. I added, if you guys watched yesterday, I did add a little bit to it since then, but yeah, that's what we drew live yesterday, so that's available on YouTube if you want to check that video out. I show you the whole process starting from a blank canvas, the sketch, to adding the shapes and the detail and shading and all that stuff. So you can check that one out on YouTube under the like live videos playlist.
And then what was it? Someone was asking, I have the same question. What blended brush do you use the most?
Blended brush. I'm not quite sure what you mean. So maybe if you want to explain what you mean by blended brush, I can answer that question.
And then, I mean, we've talked about this before in past days, but what is your favorite brush you have ever made?
Oh, gosh. You guys, that's a hard question. It's like picking a favorite child. My favorite brushes like change. Every time I create a new set, I get really obsessed with it, and I use that all the time, which is why like I've been using the gouache paint box so much lately. I'm just like really in love with what I can do with it. But this brush in particular, this textured liner is one of my favorites out of that set. I just love the way that I just love the look of it and what you can do with it. And I've used it a ton. So maybe like a current favorite brush. I don't have, one that's like an all-time favorite. It just kind of depends on my mood. I, as an artist, like to try a lot of different styles and stuff. So yeah, it always changes. I'm never good at picking favorite anything, so. Another question?
Yeah, we had a good. What should I save my creation as for a transparent background so I can put it over images with no background, for instance, like a logo?
Yeah, I would choose so if I go to this drawing and I can turn off the background, there's a little checkbox, and I didn't show you guys this, but you can turn off the visibility of layers by tapping that checkbox, and I can turn off the visibility of the background, so now it's transparent. So if you go to share, PNG is probably going to be your best bet because that actually supports having a transparent background. I haven't used it much in Procreate, but I'm pretty sure it works. Just save it. It's going to be hard to tell if I just save it to my camera roll, but we'll see what that looks like. Yeah, it flashed black first. I don't know if you saw that, but it flashed black behind it. So this should be transparent now because I turned off my background and I exported it as a PNG. JPEG does not support transparency, but PNG does. So that's another difference between those two. So try that.
Connie was just asking if you ever decide to make a stickers tutorial, and that's actually something that Lisa and I have been talking about
like
a lot.
I assume you mean like Instagram gift stickers, like that kind of stuff. I do. We're actually like experimenting with making our own stickers and trying to get them into Instagram stories and stuff. And once I know all about it, I will share that information with you guys. But
we want to go over the whole process, you know, and that's the biggest thing for us. So we're actually documenting, working on that process. So it's absolutely something that we're working on and can't wait to share.
Yep. Coming down the line.
Joseph, when they were talking about the blend brush, what he was meaning is that there's the 3 different options, not the brush, not the erasure,
the smudge tool.
Smudge and blend, yeah.
You know, honestly, I don't really use the smudge tool a lot. Like, it doesn't really fit in with the style of artwork that I do. But the great thing about any of these 3, you know, brush, smudge, is you can choose, you know, any brush you want. And some brushes are programmed to work specifically with the smudge tool. Like I have a set called Wash and Dry Watercolor Toolkit. And I think it's under my tools here. I have a brush called Wet Blender, which is made specifically to work with the smudge tool to like blend colors together in like a watercolory way. I don't know if I can show it real quick. Oh no, I'm not in the right brush frame. Wash, sand glaze. So these kind of make like a watercolory, washy effect that build up upon each other. So I'm just gonna choose 2 colors, and where they overlap, they combine like real colors might do. And then for the blend, I go to Wash and Dry Tools. So this is the Wet Blender. And they just help like blend these 2 together a little bit in kind of like an irregular way. So some brushes are set up to be used as blenders. Some won't work well as blenders at all. It really just depends. Like I try to include in my brush sets tools that will make sure you can make a whole drawing with that set, start to finish, from like, you know, having something to sketch with, something to draw shape, something to add texture, something to add details, and then other tools as well. So I try to make my sets very cohesive to kind of cover all those bases so you can make one drawing start to finish, have a cohesive look, all with one brush set. So I hope that answers your question. Probably not. I don't have a favorite, so yeah.
Someone was just asking, can you show me how you do the split screen, how you have Safari?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Reference?
That's really helpful. So there's a line down at the bottom of the screen, and this, I think, is dependent on your version of iOS. But if you...
And by the way, just so you know as well, Lisa, Joseph just said, yes, thank you for...
Okay, good, Joseph. I'm glad that helped. Okay, so you pull that up. If you go too fast, it'll go to this thing with all the apps. So you gotta have a little... I don't know, just be careful. And then you get Safari, which I have saved in my little dock down here. And then you drag it over to the side and let go. And then I usually make it about that big, so I still have a lot of room here to work. And then I can like Google, in fact, if I go back to making art every day, I can Google stuff. If I go to making art every day, this is actually how I designed this website to be used. It looks different when it's squished sideways like this. It looks like it would on an iPhone. And so we have all the prompts here with links to each, right now they're not that great of reference photos because it's just trying to give you ideas. But if it was like a tiger, there would be links to pictures of tigers and stuff like that. So you can have all your reference photos here and then draw over here. Another question?
Where did it just go? Someone's just asking, I'm going to purchase magic paper today. Any advice? That's a big one.
Magic paper. I love magic paper. Watch the tutorial. That's my best advice. I made a really in-depth tutorial about how to use that product. And the tutorial is really good. So I would highly recommend checking that out. I'm trying to see if you guys want to see, like, magic paper is used to draw this dragon. And if you look, you have all these like really subtle texture that's applied to the whole thing. But if I were to turn it off, like, that's what it looks like without it. So it kind of just makes everything look a little bit more magical. It has like cool watercolor and paper textures, and you just draw and it just looks awesome. So I would check out that tutorial. It's a really, really cool product that just makes your art have that extra special something, a little bit more photorealism. And there's a lot of different effects that it comes with. So yeah. Any more questions before we go to giveaway?
Someone's just asking, does it help to put on the screen protector? We talked about it a little bit earlier. We didn't too much. But.
For sure. I always use a screen protector. Mine is a matte glass screen protector. I link to it in my FAQ page on my website. And it gives it a much smoother feel when you draw. I have some Paper-like, which is a brand of screen protectors that they sent me, which I haven't tried out yet, but it's supposed to be more of a paper-like texture. So I gotta try those out, see what I feel about them. I really love the smooth feel of the matte glass screen protector. I do not like using it without any screen protector. It's too like sticky and not nice. So, but that is a very frequently asked question. All right, should we do our giveaway?
I think we're going to do our giveaway.
Okay, do you have names? Is it downloaded?
Yeah.
All right, giveaway is closed, you guys. We're going to pull some names and I'll call you out and tell you what you won. I'll email you with details about how to redeem whatever it is that you have won. So let's do it.
One more second, I'm almost ready.
Maybe I'll put up this screen wall. Oops, hold on. My slides went away. There we go. I'll put up my last slide while we're doing that. Okay, let's do it. I'm excited.
All right, I got our
first
winner.
Okay, so the first thing that we're going to give away are a couple of these. I'm giving away 2 different decals. These are from dbrand.com, and they're like decals you put on your Apple Pencil to make it look like a number 2 pencil. And this is like what you get is like the stickers and stuff like that. I can only ship these to the US. I'm not doing international shipping. So if you win it and you're international, I will have something else for you. Don't worry.
Awesome.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and pick our first winner.
All right.
I have you guys by email address, so I'm just going to call it like the first part of your email address. Plus you'll get emailed, so if you miss it, it's okay.
So still Sarah 347.
Still Sarah 347. You have won a D brand Apple Pencil decal. Awesome. Yay, congratulations. And we're gonna do one more. And I have them for Apple Pencil 1 and 2. So I'll ask you what kind of Apple Pencil you have. So you get the one that actually works with your Apple Pencil. All right, next winner.
Next up we have Amanda Mount 10.
Amanda Mount 10, congratulations. You have won one of these cool decals for your Apple Pencil from D Brand. Awesome. Congratulations. Okay, so that's that. I can give away 2 of those. And now I'm going to give away 2 brush sets. Oh, sorry, all the cameras shook. 2 brush sets. So the next 2 winners will get to choose whatever brush set they want from my website. So let's go ahead and get those people. We're going to do 2 different names.
All right, we have Verophobic.
Verophobic, congratulations. You won your brush set of your choosing from my website. So I'll be emailing you with details about how to get that and pick out the one you want. And then let's do one more for that.
We have mlim09.
mlim09, congratulations. You have won a brush set of your choosing from bardotbrush.com. So congratulations, we'll email you the details. And for our last giveaway, we're going to be giving away 2 master bundles. So these are basically all of my brush sets. So I'll go to that page really quick. So every brush set I've ever released is in the master bundle. It does include the magic paper we talked about before, which is like it's like special texture canvases plus brushes, so that's in there too. So that's what you're gonna be getting. So it's 13 sets, 254 brushes, and it's awesome. So you'll get all the brushes. So, all right, we ready? Drum roll. Who's our winner? Don't leave us hanging.
Have Stacy LaCava.
Stacy LaCava! Congratulations, Stacy. We will email you with details about how to redeem your master bundle. And then we're gonna do one more. These are all the brush sets that are in that. One more name. This is the last winner.
JL Labor.
JL Labor. Congratulations, JL. You've won a master bundle. I will email you with details about how to redeem that. Okay, guys,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
A whole bunch of people have asked, how can we find out if we're doing more lives? So I at least want to just quickly talk about that. It's going to basically be signing up for the email list. We'll be announcing what our schedule looks like next week.
Yeah, so next week we're trying to go live Monday through Friday like we did this week. Usually in the mid-morning Pacific time, so we're aiming for around 10 or 11 PST. The best way to get notified is, subscribe on YouTube or on Instagram at Bardot Brush, or through one of our Facebook groups. We've got the Making Art Every Day /Bardot Brush Facebook group, which is for all things Bardot Brush and making art every day. And then the Procreate community, hi Procreate community, if you guys are listening, that is just for like general Procreate questions and like supporting each other using Procreate and stuff like that, sharing our artwork and whatnot. So those are all the places we go live. So subscribe to one of those, all of them. Join, and you'll see them pop up, around that time each day next week. So, but definitely sign up for the newsletter because that's which is if you're on my website, it's this little pop-up right here. You can sign up there or at the bottom here. Any more questions? I think we're all done. Thank you guys so much for joining and hanging with me for a couple hours this morning. I really hope you learned a lot. And I hope you keep in touch, share your artwork. I can't wait to see it. Maybe I'll pull that up so you can share your artwork. I would love to see it. Keep in touch, join one of the Facebook groups, say hi. Let's make some art together. Stay home, draw, stay safe and healthy out there. Bye, everybody.